Good morning. I'm George Latimer, Westchester Executive. It is Tuesday, May 19th, and we are here in the 11 o'clock hour for our daily conversation on Facebook, which we call COVID Conversations. We're in a very difficult period of time, and we're trying to talk through with a variety of people on different issues, both those inside the government and those that are outside the government, as how we're dealing with this in a host of different areas. We've at various times had some of our commissioners in the county government, Michael Worth in mental health, Rocco Posey in probation, Tom Gleason, our commissioner sheriff of the public safety department, Dr. Charlena Amler from our health department, and other individuals within our world, but then also externally, elected officials, mayors of cities and town supervisors, and people who all have, as we all do, just a piece of a puzzle that's complicated, and it takes all the pieces to figure it out. Today, I have a friend of mine of long standing who is the head of our Office for Women, Robi Schlaff. Robi, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We, one of the pieces of this is what the impact is of being sheltered in place for such a long time. We're over 2 months, I guess, probably heading to 3 months when it's all said and done, maybe longer, of sheltering in place. And for many people, that has raised the impacts of relationships and how people deal with each other. Tell us a little bit about your office, what the Office for Women does, and then particularly what some of the issues are now during this pandemic that you've had to face that is somewhat unique, at least in intensity, if not in type, to what you do.
So our office, which is called the Office for Women, but it is a misnomer to help men as well, was created a long time ago, 1980, by Andrew O'Rourke, when it seemed that the issue of domestic violence wasn't getting the attention that it deserved. So they created this office, and 80% of what we do is related to intimate partner violence. The other 20% is women's empowerment. With your assistance, we created a women's mentoring network this year, which is incredibly successful, and have some other women's empowerment initiatives. But most of our work is with domestic violence, intimate partner violence. So we have 2 bilingual advocates who speak Spanish. One is located in the Yonkers courthouse when it's open. The rest of us are in White Plains, and we also run the Family Justice Center, which is in the White Plains courthouse. Everybody's working. No surprise to you, everybody's working. All of the partner agencies are working, all the domestic violence support agencies, the services agencies, legal services, My Sister's Place, Hope Store, Pace Women's Justice Center, Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. Everybody's open and everybody's working remotely. But what you said is really the scary part. People are sheltering in place, sometimes in places that are not safe. And what this has led to is such difficulty in having the safe space to reach out for help. So what we're finding in this county and on calls with the state, national calls, is that by the time someone calls us, the level of violence has increased and escalated to a point where it is a life or death situation. And that is scary. So what we've thought of, we use the term pivot all the time, in this pandemic, you have to be flexible and you have to pivot, and every day you have to think of what makes sense now. So what we realized about a month ago is that if the victims can't call us, maybe friends or neighbors or relatives who are concerned can call us. And we started a campaign telling people, if you're concerned, and we have it right on our website, if you're concerned about your own safety or the safety of a loved one, neighbor or friend, call us so that we can give them expert advice about how to safely plan for this person.
How does the office interact with the nonprofit service agencies that deliver the more direct services? I assume it varies depending on whatever the particular contract for services may be. But give me a sense of how that process works between this is what the government supports and done by not-for-profits. This is what the government does directly.
So we have direct service providers as well in our office, but most of that work, like you say, is done by contracted agencies. And we coordinate everything, which is a really good place to be in. So our office coordinates the Domestic Violence Council, the police conference, all of the communications that go out among the agencies. So every Monday since the second week in March, even before we started doing remote work, we have put out a comprehensive list of resources that goes out to all of the partner agencies. Commissioner Gleason sends it out to all of the police departments, and it goes out to as many community members as we can. And we work with the nonprofits that give us the information. Every week they tell us what's going on. Every week they say to us, the courts are open for orders of protection this week. You know, we think next week we can start doing child support cases. If people want to call and start getting their ducks in a row to look at child support, have them call us. So every single week we send that out, notifying everyone of what is going on. And it's a great role to be in, a great place to be in.
Now, you mentioned the courts, and of course, they perform a critical role in all of this, and yet most of all the courts are closed. I guess they have some structure for dealing with certain kinds of cases. How are you interacting with the court system under the current realities?
So that's a good question. So the courts are only taking emergency petitions. So probation, I know Rocco was on last week, I listened to him. Probation is filing petitions for orders of protection, and legal services of the Hudson Valley and Pace Women's Justice Center are also filing petitions for orders of protection remotely. So they have been able to do virtual e-filings of petitions, and some of the judges are holding conferences through Zoom. So, so that's working out well. We have weekly calls with these partner agencies, as well as with Fred Green from the District Attorney's Office, the head of special prosecutions. Last week we had Judge Capici on our call, and we just try to stay updated. It's so people are still showing up at the courthouse, and they don't necessarily want them there. They would rather they phone in to probation or legal services and get the work done remotely. But we, you know, I don't know when we're going to open up. The courthouses upstate have opened up, and you know, I'm glad we're not the guinea pigs and that we're not the first courthouse to open up. And let's see what works in these other jurisdictions and what we'll do.
I think just for everyone's edification, the governor's laid out 7 metrics that the Hudson Valley region, which Westchester is a part of, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, Rockland, Ulster, and Sullivan counties. And when we reach all 7 metrics, we're 2 metrics shy now. When we reach all 7 metrics, then we can open up. And we think that the court system is probably opening up in phase 2, which is the second round of things that open up, which will also include retail and general administrative offices. So whether they're government, whether they're you know, law, finance, real estate, whatever, that would happen in the second phase. So we're not there yet, although I wish we were. But as you said, we're going to get a test case of what's happening in upstate New York. We're going to see the suburbs around Rochester and Buffalo and how they respond to the pandemic once we start to change, you know, structures, given the fact that Westchester, you know, was first with contagion in the state, although not the worst. And we had very high peaks, but we've come down from those peaks in the last number of weeks. And that hopefully is a helpful sign going forward. But all of that will determine, you know, when the courts in this, in the 9th Judicial District and slightly beyond that will be available to be open. And I assume through family court and county court, you'll be able to do some of the advocacy work that has to be done there.
Yeah, it's very hands-on. The advocates really sit with the clients, they sit right next to them, and they go into court with them. So yeah, it is real face-to-face contact.
Westchester's an interesting county. You and I have lived here a long time. It has some of the wealthiest, best educated individuals, and yet there's still poverty and there's still, you know, a lack of knowledge about what's out there. How do you deal with the underserved population that could benefit from your services, but may or may not know that they exist? What's the outreach component
That's a really good question, and that's something that we always struggle with, and we always want to do better. So, for instance, Vicky, who is in our Yonkers office, went to several of the churches and the mosque in Yonkers last week. She brought flyers. She didn't bring cards. She brought flyers and handed them out. She also went to the 3rd precinct in Yonkers, which is in that neighborhood, to remind them about us being there. We talk to Catholic Charities all the time, the immigrant community groups. I mean, that is a community that we are very, very cognizant of, and the need that is there. And the heartbreaking thing is that they are so concerned about food, having money, feeding their families, that they will take the abuse. They're not going to reach out and try to get help with their abuse until they're in a safe place in terms of their family having food. And so we have been working with Jan Fisher at NPW, Westchester, with the Women's Agenda, Women's Advisory Board, trying to see how we can, really reach these people who are in such desperate need. But that is, as you know, that is a large percentage of our population in Westchester. I'll put in a plug.
Please go ahead.
I'll put in a plug for Give Where You Live. I'd like to see, I like that. More donations going to these community groups in Westchester and realizing that the need is here as well as in New York City.
Now, Rob, you've been very creative in identifying innovative programs, initiatives of something that didn't exist, you see a need, and you're able to construct a program. Share with us a couple of the initiatives that you're particularly proud of, that you were able to identify a need and then begin the process of satisfying it with specific actions.
So the most recent program that we've been working on is Domestic Violence High Risk Team. And we saw a spate of, as you know, murder-suicides in this county, and we're concerned about the ultimate level of violence in these domestic violence cases. And we met with Michael Orth and Commissioner Gleason and other good minds to see, what could we do? And someone said, you can't predict this violence. You can only do what you can to mitigate it. And we put together a program that trains police officers in asking a series of questions to ascertain the level of risk of violence to the family when they respond to a domestic violence incident. And if they ascertain by just checking off these questions, or if the person seems to answer no to the questions, but the police officer thinks, I'm worried about this case, they immediately call an advocate who gets on the phone with the victim and talks to the victim about acknowledging that she and her family are in extreme risk, and puts her together with a series of programs and the high risk team. And we implemented this program in Northern Westchester in 2017. And my sister's place has been doing this with White Plains Police Department for a number of years. And it's a team approach. We meet together, the probation, DA's office, mental health if we need them, DSS if we need them. Everybody works together. The domestic violence advocates, everybody works together for the safety of that family. And it's a really wonderful approach.
You've seen the incidents, not just of domestic violence, but of broader issues that deal with women across the demographic divide. I think there's a tendency to fall into the belief that these problems exist in the poorer communities and they don't exist in the wealthier communities. But is it fair to say that they exist to some degree everywhere in the society?
Absolutely. And in Westchester County, most of the murder-suicides have been in affluent areas and in affluent families. So we developed a PowerPoint, Darlene actually did it, called Behind Closed Doors. It's gotten a tremendous amount of attention, talking about these cases, whether they were in Pound Ridge or North Salem or New Rochelle or the Pleasantville or the latest was in Bedford, of affluent men killing their families. I mean, it's horrific. It's horrific. It is unimaginable. It's you can't understand it, and it's horrific. So what we want to tell people is, if you're concerned about someone, call us. Don't think it can't happen in that family. It can, and it does. So call our office, and our antennas go up. If we hear, certain things are said, our antennas go up, and we talk to county police, and we get everybody on board, and we talk about how to help the family. So my number one admonition is just call us. We don't have to do anything, say anything. Call us. We'll let you know whether your concerns are at a point where action needs to be taken.
Robi, just in closing, give a shout out to some of the people that are part of your team, the people that you have really worked alongside of you over this period of time and have done such a good job, so that we can all appreciate them a little bit better.
That's terrific. I got to give a shout out to all of them. So I have to go through the office. Suze, Steph, Martha, Darlene, Nancy, who you may know.
I do.
Vicky, and Deb. I hope I didn't miss anybody.
Are they all there on your Hollywood Squares screen?
They are always there on the Hollywood Squares screen, and you would not be surprised in an office of 8 women that it's constantly moving with everybody talking.
We've just increased our viewership by double what we normally have. Usually it's me, the guest, and whoever the guest decides that they want to tell about the interview. So I thank all of those people as well who are watching, as well as the service they give the county. One of the difficult parts, I know you've experienced this, you've worked at the state level as well as the county under previous administrations, is that certain parts of county government are just unknown, except to those portions of people that it directly affects. We go to Playland Beach. Everybody knows that's county government. Not everybody knows that the sewer treatment plant is county government. The cop pulls you over for a ticket on the parkway, that's county government at work. They don't necessarily know that there's an office for women out there, but we do. We appreciate the work that you and your team does. We're very grateful, and it is, and particularly during a pandemic like this, there are things that generate beyond just the issues of health and the economy, and you're there to deal with them, and we deeply appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that.
We've been talking with Robi Schlaff, who's the head of our Office for Women here in Westchester County. Robi, give out a number that you can be reached at if somebody wants to communicate.
995-5972.
995-5972.
That's it.
Office for Women with any of the services they provide. This is George Latimer. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back at 2 o'clock today for our daily coronavirus update. We'll provide information on the extent of the contagion, the spread. We have been seeing numbers drop now consistently over the last few weeks. Hopefully we'll be able to give that report when we're with you. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other activities and programs that are coming as we head to Memorial Day and as we go through the month of May in this spring that we'll never forget, the spring of 2020. In any event, have a good few hours. We'll see you at 2 o'clock. Stay safe.